right. Welcome to episode 3 of the Port Haven StreamCast.
Hello.
I'm your boy, Professor Django, here with my good pal, Yoda Bauer.
Hello, hello. It's great to see you. Well, I can't see you guys, but it's great to be seen by all of you.
Seeing us through the power of the internet.
Woo!
Um, we are excited today, as we are every week, to be here with you on our streams. I hope this time slot's working for people, but we are especially excited this week because we have a special topic. So if you weren't aware, then if you have a significant other, an apology might be necessary. But if you weren't aware, yesterday was Valentine's Day. And so we have decided to make today the Port Haven Shipper Special. So you can celebrate all of the ships of all of the things. Yoda Bauer, why don't you spend a minute here talking to our friends about what a ship is to you before we talk about our favorite ones.
So a ship, when we're talking about ship, we don't mean like a spaceship. It's one of those nice abbreviations. It's short for relationship. So if you're not familiar with the term shipping, it's usually it's usually fans hoping for a specific relationship to form between two different characters. So, for example, we have many on the channel who have found us because I've done a lot of videos about Kylo Ren and Rey, and there's a lot of quote-unquote Reylo shippers out there and that type of thing. A lot of people tend to mean this just in relationships in general, so they'll ship, say, Anakin and Padme. Personally, I tend to look at this as more of like, when I do ship characters, it's usually, which isn't that often anyway, but it's usually when it's not going to be something obvious. So I wouldn't ship Anakin and Padme because you know from the beginning that that's how it's going to go. I prefer characters that are like, you know, team this or that. It's kind of dumb and tribal as it is, but I like all of this just for fun anyway. But that's what we're here for. We're always here to have fun and hang out. But yeah, that's kind of what we mean if you're unfamiliar with it. Don't worry, we're not going to get super emotional and glittery everywhere about this today. Like I said, we're all in just for the theme of the week. And wow, we got a lot of people here, so that's great. I'm really excited to see everyone here.
Yeah, you might can speak for yourself. I'm all the glitter over here. I want to be a Tumblr celebrity and just spend all of my days talking about ships and social justice. And how my favorite ships are problematic for social justice. But anyway, the way we're going to do this is we have kind of organized our thoughts into our top 5 ships. And so we're going to sort of take turns going through them. And that brings us, I guess I'll just go ahead and jump in here first with my number 5, and that is Luke and Callista. Luke and Callista. If you have been aware of our conversations from before, then you knew this was coming. It was going to come. It was going to happen because as everyone obviously knows, Callista. Last name different depending on what you're reading. Callista is Luke's one true soulmate. He's not my OTP, but Callista and Luke were meant to be together. Callista, if you're unaware, there are 2 main books, Darksaber and Children of the Jedi, and it's been so long I forget which one comes first.
Children of the Jedi.
Yeah, I thought Children of the Jedi came first, but with Children of the Jedi and Darksaber, if you've not read them before, this is basically a story of how Luke Skywalker, human flesh person, has special mommy daddy Jedi time with Force Ghost Jedi Callista, and then later on flesh person Callista inhabiting someone else's body. But it's the true Star Wars romance story. It's what all the kids want on the internet these days. And so yeah, that's my number 5 there. Luke and Callista. What would your number 5 be if you wanna tell us about that?
In the department of ships that don't make you want to puke, my number 5. So my number 5 ship I'm really into actually is so you may remember from The Force Awakens, they get back to the Han and Chewie and Finn get back to like the Resistance base, and Chewie has been shot in the arm, and there's a Resistance nurse that's like tending to his wound, and Chewie's like really chatting her up, and he's all like, you know, and the nurse is like, oh, that sounds scary. You must have been very brave, and that I ship them. I ship Chewie and the random Resistance nurse.
See, now my problem with this is not beautiful person on Force Ghost love, but is the fact that Chewbacca is married. Chewbacca has a wife, and here he is. He's left Nala back on Kashyyyk watching her cooking videos, and he's out here flirting it up with the Resistance nurses.
Well, look, first off, Lumpy is canon again, but Mala is not yet canon again. And we don't know. Mala could have been dead for years, and this is Chewie finally opening himself up to love again. And that's what I'm saying, is we don't know where Mala is. Huh. We don't know that he's cheating on Mala. And yeah, I think that's what I want to do. And it's certainly better than breaking physics to have physical relations. That's all I'm saying.
Solo Pirate says Maz would be jealous of Chewie and the Resistance nurse.
Well, she could just go to the Master Codebreaker if she doesn't have Chewie, because apparently he's good at everything.
Yeah, I definitely believe that Maz has got guys waiting in line. She's not hurting for people. But to move on, my number 4 is one that if you had asked me this question a week ago, I would not have been able to tell you, because it comes from a Legends book that I'm currently reading, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize to Nolan because I know you're not this far in the book, but I don't consider this to be a major spoiler for the X-Wing season or X-Wing series. But my number 4 is Gavin Darklighter, and I'm not sure how to say this, so yell at me in the comments. But Asir Salar. So if you've ever read the X-Wing books before, then you know that Gavin Darklighter is younger cousin to Biggs Darklighter, the person we all know and love from A New Hope. And Gavin is his younger cousin. Is just a young kid on the Rogue Squadron in the post-Return of the Jedi universe. And young Gavin falls in love with older Bothan woman Asir. And this gets us to one of the most awkward parts of the whole series so far, where Corran Horn gets to have a conversation about all of his interspecies intercourse stories, as he warns young Gavin about the dangers of that. And we even got a moment, so I just read this chapter literally last night, where Wedge takes Asir aside and like makes her promise not to break Gavin's heart. But that's my number 4, Gavin and Asir, the interspecies love meant to be.
I remember that from when I read the book a while ago. I've been in the process of rereading the X-Wing books, but you and Nolan both are further than me. But I remember that. I've never forgotten the scene where they talk about the interspecies relations and what to do with claws and different level of skin toughness and that sort of thing. I read that at a rather impressionable age, too. It was very interesting chapter.
If you've never read that, Corran gets a basically sunburn all over his body from one of his dalliances. shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your number 4? Your number 4.
So my number 4 comes from Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and it's also a little bit quirky. And that is between Captain Hondo Onaka and the bounty hunter Aura Singh. And I ship them fully. I don't know that there was ever really a relationship between them or not, but there's an episode of the Clone Wars. Man, it was probably the I honestly don't remember what season it was, but Boba Fett, young Boba Fett, is out to get revenge on Mace Windu for killing the glorious Jango Fett, who may he live forever in the fields of Mandalore.
Yep.
And she takes him to Hondo Onaka, who's a character. So Aura Singh is in The Phantom Menace. She's like the bald white lady with the giant ponytail. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Hondo Onaka is a pirate, a space pirate captain from the Clone Wars, and she arrives with young Boba Fett. And Hondo looks at young Boba Fett and goes, "Well, at least I can tell he's not mine," or something to that effect. And that line made me laugh so hard, especially because at this point, Clone Wars was still kind of transitioning out of being a just for kids cartoon,
right,
and was starting to like grow up a little bit. And it's not that the line was that funny, it just shocked me because there had not been a line like that in the series before, and I was like, oh, this is great. And I'm full for it because Hondo is so silly, and he's like, yeah. I can't even do a good Hondo impression, but I'm a huge fan of him. He's a very much comedic character, and then Aura Singh is totally BA and like, I will skin you alive. So just putting them together, I really, really enjoy.
Yeah. I don't really have much to add to that, except that I think we all need more Hondo in our lives. Like every time Hondo shows up in Rebels, I think I want Hondo to show up in everything.
Everything.
Like just
and
random
as a shout
cameos.
out to that, yeah, just appear anytime we need a pirate. And random shout out to that, there's a website called Partisan Cantina, and they've been doing a advice column from Captain Hondo, and you can like send in questions, and like Hondo will answer your questions. And I haven't done it yet, but I really want to. So that's just a random aside if you are also a Hondo Onaka fan and you want to check that out.
Cool. Well, I will move on to my number 3. My number 3 admittedly comes more from The Force Awakens than The Last Jedi, and I can explain my disappointment with that. But my number 3 is Finn and Poe. Finn and Poe. Now, Finn and Poe, if you ask me, are just meant to be together. I've got bobblehead Poe here, who agrees with me. But especially in the Force Awakens, I just feel like the two of them are just written to be together. Like, it's just obvious to me. And I have to, also express I had a little heartbreak here when I saw The Last Jedi, because they were separated for so much of the film, and as soon as they're back in one place, Poe, again, my buddy Poe here, gets way more excited about BB-8 than he does about Finn. And I don't know if Finn's heart broke in that moment, but my heart definitely broke in that moment. It's crashed all of my Finn Poe dreams. But nevertheless, Finn Poe is still my number 3.
And yeah, I know. I mean, they had some pretty instant chemistry in The Force Awakens. But I mean, yeah, in The Last Jedi, when Finn and Rose show back up, BB-8 is the first person that Poe runs to. And I just think, the man goes to his droid first, and yeah.
Yeah, well, what's your number 3? Walk us through this next relationship that you're a fan of.
So my next one is kind of interesting because I actually only like one of the characters in said ship. But my number 3 would probably be Revan and Bastila from Knights of the Old Republic. And this is kind of spoilery for that first game, but it's been out forever, and you should have played it by now, so that's okay. But I actually can't stand Bastila that much. She's really annoying and arrogant and whiny. But I think it's a case of, like, her character is supposed to be that way. Like, I don't think she's a poorly written character. I think she's actually a really well-written character. She's just a well-written character that is written to be kind of terrible. But I really like their story. Um, Usually, I'm not always as into the romantic interest redeems someone kind of story, because I feel like it doesn't really work that way. But what I
Right.
liked about this was they would have been at odds so much before Revan had his mind wiped,
Right.
and Bastila had every reason to hate him.
Hmm.
And I don't think in this case it's not really Bastila that redeems Revan. It's Revan getting a fresh slate and starting over, literally starting over, having no memory of who he was, that makes him this different person. And so
Right.
I think it kind of works. So I like the idea though that she's like helping him see life again, but she's not like making him a good person again. And I just like anything involving Revan, really. And I think in terms of galactic epic scale romances, um, in a way it is kind of a prince and princess kind of story, but cooler.
Right.
Just because they're both like so cool, like so good at what they Revan is one of the best Force users of all time in Legends, and Bastila can do cool stuff at a younger age
Right.
than most, and so I really really liked how that went.
And that's almost one of the more painful ones in a way, like for the characters because, like Bastila, after Revan gets his mind wiped, like Bastila, assuming, that you believe in the ship, Bastila has to like interact with Revan who doesn't know he's Revan. And to
Right.
like, I don't know, I forget the name of the movie, but there was a rom com from a couple of years ago where there's like this couple, they're married and then they have a car wreck and like she gets
Yeah.
amnesia where like she forgets like the last 5 years, which is like their entire relationship. And I think
Hmm.
about that when I think about Bastila and Revelin, how hard that must have
Yeah.
been for Bastila tugging at the heartstrings there.
Right. Knowing, especially because she was the one that was supposed to kill him. Like she was
Right,
mentally preparing herself to get into this fight with this other Jedi.
right,
And then he quote unquote died, and then she had to spend all this time being known as the Revan killer, but she didn't kill him.
right. Well, moving on along, we're going at a good clip here. I will
Hmm.
go with my number two. So my second favorite relationship in the Star Wars saga is one of the most established ones, and that is Han and Leia. So
Hmm.
Han and Leia, I can't have a list of Star Wars ships and not talk about Han and Leia. It's their romance that defines the original trilogy for me. It's that romance, those moments in Empire Strikes Back, especially that make that film for me in a lot of important ways. Um, Han and Leia, even that's why, our heart breaks in The Force Awakens, when
Hmm.
Han dies and Leia can feel it. Or even in the outrage about The Last Jedi, in the talk about the novel, I don't know if we talked about this in another streamcast or not, but like the idea that Han's funeral is going to be in the novel but wasn't in the film, like a lot of people get upset about that because, we are so tied into the relationship between Han and Leia. And so that's my number two. It's unsurprising that it would show up on one of our lists, but that's number two there on my list is Han and Leia.
Sorry, I'm trying to talk chat. Um, yeah, I mean that, to me, I feel like they can still kind of count even in my weird definition of shipping, because at the time there was a lot of will Leia end up with Han or Luke? Back in the '80s when no one knew that they were siblings.
Right.
Um, Even though I have a little bit harder considering this one a full ship, just because it was never going to work out with Luke and Leia, because they would eventually find out that they're siblings. Like I would have a much easier time of it if she had just outright picked Han, although she really did anyway. I
Yeah.
I don't think there was ever really anything there between her and Luke anyway. But I mean, their romance is really one of the most iconic. In Legends, of course, they didn't get married for quite some time after there was the whole courtship of Princess Leia incident,
Right.
where Han and Leia get in an argument, and then Leia runs away with Space Fabio, and then Han gets mad, so he kidnaps Leia and takes her to a planet, and then 3PO sings a song, and it's just really weird. As near as I can tell, in new canon, in new canon they got married on Endor, right?
Right, I think so.
Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
They got married on Endor, and they had their son Ben. Not that they had Ben; it's not a form of the verb to be. They had their son named Ben within a year of Return of the Jedi. So if anyone's ever been wondering, Kylo is about 29 then, right? Oh no, it's 36 years, not 30.
Yeah. He was
30,
he was and always has been older enough than Rey that they were never twins, for any of you that
for any reason, right?
Had those theories after The Force Awakens. He's older and always has been. But so while we're talking about sequel trilogy characters, why don't you tell us about your number two?
So my number two is going to deviate from Django's, and it's also going to put our in danger. So my number two is I actually ship Rey and Finn very much. Again, this was more of a in The Force Awakens than in The Last Jedi. A lot of people think that Finn and Rey is the Luke and Leia of this trilogy, and that now she's very clearly on a path with Kylo. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been a big fan of Finn. I wish he got some more love. And as much as Rey is desperately searching for Kylo throughout a large portion of The Last Jedi, she's also always thinking about Finn. That one of my favorite moments in The Last Jedi is right before she gets into the Falcon's escape pod to make it onto the Supremacy Snoke ship. She talks to Chewie, and she's like, Chewie, if you see Finn, tell him, and she can't think of anything to say, and then Chewie growls something, and we never get to know what it was. And she's like, that's perfect. Tell him that. Yeah, I'm really seeing in the chat a couple people are don't think at all. Don't think they have that relationship. Rose is into Finn, but I mean, Rose might have kissed Finn, but Finn was not kissing her back. I don't know what movie other people saw, but Finn was not kissing her back. So I don't think there's anything there, and I talked about that a little bit in my Finn video. But I don't know. I think their relationship's really sweet, and I like this idea of they're kind of two characters from the same side of the coin, whereas Rey and Kylo are opposite sides of the same coin. But Rey and Finn are both people who have come from somewhere where they don't want to come from anymore and need to figure out who they are. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think their relationship's kind of sweet.
Yeah, well, my feelings about Finn and Rey are mostly summed up when Han in The Force Awakens says, hug later. Like, I don't...
Yeah, hug later.
you can save that for later on. That's not necessarily my cup of tea. But
right now, yeah.
And that brings us to the top of our list. The top of our list, our OTPs. And I'm not skipping ahead, right? Yep, our OTPs.
Right, no, that's where we're at.
And I will go first. My OTP, the one best, truest love in Star Wars ever, is Hera and Kanan. Hera Syndulla and Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels. If you've seen it before, then I've got a whole video about this before we had got on-screen confirmation of this in Star Wars Rebels. I made a video called A Shipper's Plea that's on our channel begging Dave Filoni to let us have this. And Hera and Kanan are my favorite for a lot of reasons. One, because I think it makes sense, but I feel like their characters have always been written that way. From A New Dawn all the way through the beginning of Rebels until we actually finally get to see that come to fruition in this most recent season. I feel like, and not in like a pushy, overwritten, rushed kind of way, but their characters have always been soulmates. And the fact that, in the most recent season of Rebels, it's still ongoing, we finally get to see that come to fruition. And Rebels comes back on Monday. If you're not paying attention, we're going to be back with our Rebels content pretty soon. But like, if you're not following along, this will be a spoiler, but like, Hera gets captured, in the mid-season break, and Kanan has to go rescue her. And it is this perfect moment for me where the one true Star Wars pairing, my Star Wars OTP, where he has to go save his true love. And it's so touching for me, and I can't wait. I see those trailers, and I just cry. Like, it just brings me to tears. But that's my OTP. What are your thoughts on #Canera?
So Canera was almost my number one, because I honestly love them together so much. I think they're great. I think they're one of the best done relationships in the sorry, I just got a thing. There we go. Stream resumed. I think the stream's cut off for a second, but I got distracted. It said stream complete. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm still talking. But I really liked them. I think the reason why they're not number one on my list is because I don't really consider them a ship, because I think they were always written to I think they were always written to be together. Like, there was never a point of, will Kanan or Hera end up with someone else? There was never a point of, will they even end up together? They first came to Star Wars in the novel A New Dawn by John Jackson Miller. And in that case, there was kind of a will they, won't they thing. But I honestly think where we find them in Rebels, I think they've talked to each other. I think they know that they both like each other. They both have feelings. Or frick, I think they both know that they're in love in Rebels. And they've come to some sort of agreement of, not now, it's too complicated why we're at war. Because there's so many points where in Rebels, one or the other would call each other love as a nickname, or they'll look at each other a certain way. So like, I always had a hard time shipping them in Rebels, not because I didn't like them or believe in them as characters, but I just, in my kind of narrow definition of a ship, they don't count as a ship. But I absolutely adore them as characters.
I mean, and Solo Pirate made a comment in chat just now that basically the same thing can be said of Han and Leia, that they're written to be together. I mean, and I think that's true. I mean, I think even in A New Hope, we see that the chemistry is not between Leia and Luke. It's between Han and Luke, and so I get that, but I honestly I can't explain it, and maybe this is just a Rebels thing for me, and it speaks to how much I loved A New Dawn, the novel, but like, their relationship just speaks to me on a level that I just can't relate to other things. But go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to agree with you.
Yeah, I was going to say, while we're on our OTPs, our one true pairings, why don't you go ahead and share with us your OTP?
So my OTP is going to make a lot of Legends people happy. At the end of the day, my true ship in all of Star Wars comes from Legends, and it's Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade. And I was actually telling Django while we were getting ready for the stream, I feel very weird saying that, because most of the true shippers of Luke and Mara, maybe that's kind of a bold statement to say, maybe I shouldn't say true, but like, most of the most intense shippers of Luke and Mara don't like the new canon, because Luke and Mara aren't together. Mara doesn't even exist. And I feel like I'm one of the few people where I'm still really into their relationship, but I'm okay with the new canon. But I loved them. And they, to me, really counted as a ship, because Mara Jade came on the scene in Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. And while there was definitely a relationship at play between Luke and Mara, it wasn't necessarily going to be a romantic one. She spent the entire trilogy trying to kill him. And then Luke went on to have several terrible girlfriends which included Callista. Um, and it was just all of these things. And then finally we got around to the Thrawn duology, or the Hand of Thrawn duology, sorry.
Right.
And that was going to end the Batnum Spectra era of Star Wars novels before we hit the Del Rey era of Star Wars novels. And that's really insider trading talk. I'm sorry. But Timothy Zahn was tasked with tying up all of the loose ends from the 1999 or 1991 to about, I think, 1999 era of books. Right. I don't remember the year off the top of my head. And then Del Rey was going to take over, and they started off with, I think, the New Jedi Order is how they started off. And so Zahn finally got to marry, well, they didn't get married in the books, but Zahn finally got to hitch Luke to Mara. And I remember reading it. I read it late, well after it had been out for a while, but I read it in high school. And I just remember sitting there, and like the final book was so long. It was like, the first book was normal. It was like 400 pages, and the second book was like 800 or something ridiculous. It was like he wanted to write 3 books, and they made him write 2, so then he just wrote 2 books for his last one or something. And there was like a 100-page span between a Luke and Mara chapter to the next Luke and Mara chapter. And I remember being so mad because I was so excited for when they finally were going to get together. And then they were, that's true, Solo Pirate. We don't know that Mara doesn't exist in the new canon. I hope she doesn't, though. I hope that Mara Jade will remain only in Legends because I love her so much. I don't want her in new canon unless she is with Luke. I would rather her not exist, and then we just have the Luke Skywalker we have in the canon sequel trilogy. But anyway, I'm just rambling now. Eventually, they got married in the Union comic, and that's really my. I got more into that romance storyline than I did with Han and Leia, even. But I think that's because I saw the Star Wars movies when I was a kid, and I didn't even really understand what I was watching. But like I was reading the Luke and Mara story at an age when it would mean something to me, and I think that's what happened there.
Right. I mean, and I think as much as I talk about Luke and Callista, that's mostly to be trolly, especially trolly of you. But you're right. Luke and Mara were written. I mean, it's just like Kanan and Hera in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. It developed organically in a way that made it not feel like pressured and rushed, but also in a way that felt destined. And I kind of like, as much as I did truly love The Last Jedi, I kind of feel the same way about Mara, as I would have hated to have seen Luke with anyone else. And given that, unless there's some actual flesh person Callista that Force Ghost Luke can get with now in new canon, in a reversal of fates there. I've already written to J.J. Abrams about that, and that's not not even a lie. I've already sent out those tweets. But no, Luke and Mara were always meant to be together. It was always that way. And I, like everyone else, was just as glad in Legends when that finally happened, and get to watch that develop as well. That might have been the best reaction to anything I've ever seen on the internet before. Solo Pirate says the Falcon and the Ghost need to get together.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Make sweet baby ships.
Yeah, maybe that's what the ship in Solo is. That's like, that's some kind of merging of the two ships in a not safe for work kind of way. Anyway, moving on. I've got both of these on one slide just to get these in here and work them in.
Okay. Yep.
But what we also wanted to cover here, so I was unfamiliar with this next term, I'll be honest, until yesterday when I was doing some research and getting my list and stuff together. But I was familiar with the term OTP for your one true pairing. And apparently there's also the term no TP for like that one ship that is just like a hard pass for you. So we're going to
I always thought no TP was help, I'm stranded. But,
yeah. But why don't you go ahead and we'll just same at the same time, but you go ahead. Who is your no TP?
All right, my no TP is Ahsoka and Lux from Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
And mine is from the new animated show, Sabine and Ezra from Rebels.
So we both went Star Wars animation here.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Ahsoka and Lux did not end up together, as near as I can tell. In fact, I think he was into Steela, who was oh frick, what's his face from Rogue One? Saw Gerrera's sister.
All right, yeah.
So I don't think he ended up being into Ahsoka. But there was an episode, and I think it would have been the 3rd season of the Clone Wars, where they met heroes on both sides. And it was like super awkward in Disney Channel, and like they were accidentally bumping hands, and he didn't know that people from the Republic could be good, and she didn't know separatists could be nice, and it was like Romeo and Juliet, and I just wanted to puke the entire episode, and I hated it.
Yeah, I was
mostly because I still didn't like Ahsoka at that time too, so I think that was part of it.
Oh yeah, probably. I'm kind of the same way in the way that I feel about Sabine and Ezra. I mean, Ezra by far, and I hate saying this because even Ezra has grown on me over the course of the 4 seasons of Star Wars Rebels. But in any given episode, Ezra is my least favorite part of Star Wars Rebels. And I feel like there's no evidence in Rebels for a Sabine and Ezra relationship, even the way that there was for Ahsoka and Lux in the Clone Wars. Like, you could see how they might be hinting at that. And I don't feel like that's there in Rebels. And so I feel like it's this complete, like, internet creation. Because they're opposite genders and they're about the same age. And so let's ship them together. But honestly, the biggest reason I don't like Sabine and Ezra as a ship is Sabine deserves better.
I was about to say, that was going to be my comment. Sabine deserves so much better.
Like, Sabine is awesome, and Ezra is not. And that would be an incredible kind of mishap there, in my opinion.
I would agree. I would agree with that completely.
But so before we move to chat and get some chat comments here, I know we're running already on time, but you may have noticed, if you're watching, that there is one prominent Star Wars ship that we have not discussed at all.
Either in our list of favorites nor in our least favorite.
Right. So, Jess, you're our internet contact with this section of fandom, whether or not you wanted to be. So why don't you talk for a second about Reylo?
About Reylo. So here's the thing with Reylo. And I feel like I need to address this because at least 50% of our subscribers are here for Reylo, and I'm probably letting them down, especially because I'm shipping Rey and Finn. Reylo is interesting to me. I 100%, and I've said this in all of my Kylo and Rey videos, that they 100% have something between them. They have some sort of force bond. I think they have some sort of linked destiny. A lot of people make a lot of comparisons between them and Bastille and Revan. And really there's a lot about Kylo that's very similar to Revan, other than just his mask, which is why I think I've come to be really interested in them. But interested in Kylo. But I am honestly indifferent on this ship, which I probably shouldn't fully admit to, but I'm going to. Just because I think it's hard to agree with. So I don't know. There's so much of it that is there's so much of it that's frankly problematic. Like and I hate using the word problematic, but it's right. The word the kids use these days. I think it is possible for a Rey and Ben Solo relationship to happen if very specific things happen. I do not want love for Rey to be what causes his redemption, because it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
After he is hypothetically redeemed, then I could see something happening. And actually, Django, you had a good comment on this when we were prepping about how Rey would actually feel towards Ben.
Right.
Saying that if she has any feelings at all, it's for Ben and not for Kylo Ren.
I mean, and I feel like that really is how I feel, though, because, like, I mean, you did a whole video, 2 videos, the monster and the Jedi, because I feel like when Rey looks at Kylo, she sees a monster. When Rey looks at Ben, that's somebody she can relate to. And you mentioned this in one of your videos, and we've talked about this, how I feel like Rey and Kylo, like, I want them to be the Professor X and Magneto of the Star Wars world. These, like, I don't like the word frenemies, but, like, these people that are always at odds at one another, but they're best friends because they're the only people that can understand one another.
Right.
And to me, that's how I see their relationship. I don't necessarily see it as a romantic one, because I don't feel like that what we have seen in the films sort of lends itself to that. And I compare this to Finn and Poe, because in The Last Jedi, or not The Last Jedi, but in The Force Awakens, you don't have to, obviously, but you can very much read some type of chemistry between Finn and Poe. Like, it's there in a way that even in The Last Jedi, I don't feel like the film sets it up for Rey and Kylo. And that's not to say that it can't happen, or that I wouldn't necessarily, or that I would necessarily oppose it if it was done correctly. But I don't feel like it's there, for me at least. But yeah, what were you also saying about Reylo, though?
No, I can see it. I think it's very, very probable. In fact, I would go as far as to say I definitely think Kylo has feelings for Rey.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that is he lives in isolation. He's like the first chick he didn't murder.
Right.
That will still talk to him. So, he doesn't have a whole lot of options, and I think that's part of it for him. But I think it's a case of there's a very real bond between them that could be romantic or could not be romantic, depending on how they use it. But that bond exists, and so that's where all of this chemistry comes from. It's just a matter of where Abrams is going to take it, and I think that's going to be dependent on what they decide to do with Ben. Is Kylo just going to die, never redeemed? Is Ben going to be redeemed? But, not to plug our own stuff, but I did a whole video on Ben Solo's redemption and how I don't think a redemption where he becomes a good guy and an angel and he has a whole halo and all that is going to happen.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I think he's going to stay evil either. And rather than reiterate that, I would just recommend you go watch the video. Right. But yeah, we couldn't talk about shipping without talking about Reylo. I don't actively ship Reylo. I don't actively ship against Reylo. Other than the fact that I ship Rey Finn, I don't really have a problem with Reylo happening. Yeah, exactly like a fox. Will Rey ever get over the rapey threats? I don't know, because that would be a hard one for me to get over. That's No, go ahead.
My biggest thing about Reylo is that it really helps our YouTube analytics.
Yep.
So that's where I'm at with Reylo.
Kylo Ren, so I will make as many Kylo Ren videos as I can think of, because I do honestly love the character. But yeah.
I'll also throw this in here too. So we did a poll a while back on our Twitter, which if you're not following us, you can see our Twitter account there, twitter.com/Port Haven Forums. But we did a poll on our Twitter account, which is probably the most attention that any single tweet has ever gotten.
Yep.
And we were asking which was the better ship, Canera, which is, Kanan and Hera, or Reylo, Rey and Kylo. And those two fan communities went crazy for our tweet. And it had more responses than I ever would have imagined. But the funniest... like back and forth about it for days. Like this poll, I think, went on for a full week, and so it's back and forth, over the course of days, and the results. I was watching them over the course of these days. The results would like swing back and forth, and I think the most amazing thing about this tweet is when that poll ended, it was exactly even, even.
Yep, 50-50. With all, I don't even know if I can find it again, but it had like 300 votes or 400 votes or something. Like, it was a lot of votes, and it came exactly even Oh, I have it screenshotted somewhere. This
Yeah.
is the part of the stream where you get to watch me look at my photos and try to find a thing.
Well, while you're looking at your photos, why don't we throw it to chat for a minute? What
Yes,
are
ask
there?
us.
Do you have questions, or are there about our ships, or do you have other ships you want us to talk about really quick? Solo Pirate says Kylo and Rose.
Yeah,
I
that
don't,
could happen.
I don't think
You
they would
never
get
know.
along that well.
I don't think it's gonna. Yeah,
Let me
think
see
that's
what else is
very
going on
unlikely.
in chat.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Yeah, it was 654 votes. Dead even. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this particularly well. But yeah. I can put the image up on forums.port-haven.com if you guys want to see it.
And
Yeah.
Solo Pirate also says he's betting on Rapo.
Rapo.
And,
I know a lot of people are going there. So while we're throwing it to chat, first of all, if you are a Wolfpack member, give us a howl. And anybody out there who's a Wolfpack member, everyone in chat should check them out. Port Haven is part of the YouTube Wolfpack. It's an amazing group. They've been really supportive. We actually have 3 pack members listed in the description here because they've been helping us get our stream set up. And I always appreciate it when you folks come out and support us here. But yeah, looking through like a fox, Tom wants me to stop protecting my integrity and take advantage of Raylo for views, and I am probably going to do that. Also, hello, Kiana. It's nice of you to say hello.
I might have also encouraged her to do that at some point too.
Yeah, a lot of people are telling me to just give in, and just make the fan videos. It's just more that
Nolan says he'll give you his Kylo mask for your Cheez-Its box.
That is tempting. That is really tempting. I know a lot of people are really in the Cheez-Its. I've been trying to think of like a fan name for like the Cheez-Its things. I thought of Cheeseheads, but that's already a thing if you're a Green Bay Packers fan. So if you guys can think of a name for fans of the Cheez-Its box, let me know. And then that can be like our group. I'll get it down so you guys can look upon the Cheez-Its box. But I mean, I know a lot of you guys have been talking in chat. I like Darth Knox is shipping Palpatine with his ship. Like a Fox is shipping Spock and Uhura, which I fully support Spock and Uhura. So I'm right with you there. But yeah, that's really all I've got. I'll give you all in chat a few more minutes or a couple more seconds to say anything. It's not a bad group name. But otherwise, that's what we got. I really appreciate you all being here. Knights of Cheese. I like it, Knox. Knights of Cheese. That's currently winning. But yeah, we're really excited you guys have been liking these. I know Nolan had a suggestion going forward for a bounty hunters themed episode of the stream. Always let us know. Come back, leave a comment in the stream afterwards where it doesn't disappear. Let us know any topics you might be interested in. And as we go forward, we're going to keep trying to do this once a week, every Thursday, right now, anyway. Django lives the professor life, so as semester by semester, our schedule will probably change.
Yeah.
And aiming for 1 p.m. Eastern, which is when this stream started today. For those of you, it's currently 1:49 Eastern. If you don't know what time.
If you haven't already, check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/Port Haven Forums. We are on Twitter all the time. And you're here on YouTube, and that subscribe button is just right there. Like you're looking at it. It's looking back at you. You can just hit it right now. And then you can hit that little bell, and you will get notified when we go live. So you don't even have to remember that it's 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. Your phone will just tell you, hey, Jess and Django want to come talk to you now. And here we'll be, right here to talk to you.
Tom also has the Chedai order. Okay, so I think we're gonna do a Twitter poll. So you all need to follow us on Twitter, and we're gonna do Knights of Cheese versus the Chedai order, and we're gonna let the internet decide.
See, now I want to know: is there a gray Chedai order?
That would be like the moldy Cheez-Its or something.
And always, as you see in the chat, forums.porthaven.com. We are always there too. You can chat with us in the comments or on Twitter, or you can drop by the forums, and we are there as well.
We have all sorts of both on-topic Star Wars discussion and off-topic discussion about anything. Black Panther's coming out, and I'm going to go see it. What is tomorrow as far as today is concerned? And you can come and talk to me about some Black Panther, too, because we don't talk about non-Star Wars things here very often. And that's what I got. So
yep.
Nolan says, Django, that is called blue cheese. That's true. So yeah, I guess until next time, guys, keep it real and fly casual.
See you later.